In 1909, a brand new ocean liner vanished somewhere between South Africa and England with 211 people on board. No wreckage, no bodies, no distress signal, not a single trace was ever recovered. And despite being one of the most expensive maritime searches in history at the time, no one has ever been able to explain what happened to the SS Waratah. This is a ship that simply ceased to exist. Over 116 years later, we still do not know why. What makes the Waratah's disappearance uniquely disturbing is not just the scale of the loss, but the fact that it happened to a modern, well-built vessel on a routine commercial voyage. This was not some aging rust bucket limping through a hurricane. The Waratah was less than a year old. She was a 9,000-ton steel steamship built by Barclay, Curle and Company on the River Clyde, one of the finest shipyards in the world. She was designed for the Blue Anchor Line's premium route between London and Australia, outfitted with comfortable passenger accommodations and a hold large enough for substantial cargo. She had completed one successful round trip before departing on her second. Everything about the ship suggested reliability. Everything about the voyage suggested routine. But one passenger who sailed on her maiden voyage disagreed, and what he did next would haunt the story of the Waratah forever. His name was Claude Sawyer. A businessman and experienced sea traveler, Sawyer boarded the Waratah in Australia for the return leg to London. Almost immediately, he grew uneasy. The ship, he said, had a strange rolling motion. She would lean hard to one side and hang there, hesitating before slowly recovering. To Sawyer, this was not normal behavior. It felt like the ship was top-heavy, like her center of gravity was dangerously high. He later claimed he had a recurring nightmare aboard the vessel, a vision of a figure dressed in armor holding a bloodied sword, standing over the body of the ship. Whether you believe in premonitions or not, Sawyer believed in his. When the Waratah docked at Durban, South Africa on the 26th of July, 1909, Sawyer made a decision that would save his life. He got off the ship, he collected his luggage, disembarked, and refused to continue the voyage. He even sent a telegram to his wife with 3 words: "Thought Waratah top heavy." The Waratah departed Durban that same day, bound for Cape Town. She was never seen again. For a time, no one panicked. Communication delays were normal, but as days turned into weeks with no word, alarm spread. The Blue Anchor Line chartered search vessels. The Royal Navy dispatched ships. Aircraft were not yet a practical option, so the search was conducted entirely by sea, sweeping the South African coastline and the shipping lanes between Durban and Cape Town. Nothing. Not a lifeboat. Not a deck chair, not a shred of canvas or splinter of wood. The Indian Ocean had swallowed the Waratah whole. A formal Board of Trade inquiry convened in London in 1910. It was an extraordinary proceeding. Over the course of months, dozens of witnesses were called, engineers were questioned, and the ship's design was scrutinized from keel to funnel. The inquiry heard testimony about the Waratah's metacentric height, the measurement that determines how stable a ship is when it rolls. Several experts concluded that the Waratah had a dangerously low metacentric height, meaning she was prone to excessive rolling and slow recovery. In plainer terms, she was top-heavy, exactly as Claude Sawyer had feared. Other passengers corroborated his account. Multiple travelers described the ship's uncomfortable rolling motion, that eerie tendency to lean and linger before righting herself. But the inquiry could not determine a definitive cause of loss. The final report acknowledged the ship may have capsized in heavy seas, but stopped short of a firm conclusion. No evidence existed, only theories. And those theories have multiplied over the past century. The most widely accepted explanation is that the Waratah encountered a severe storm off the wild coast of South Africa, a stretch of ocean notorious for its unpredictable weather and massive rogue waves. The Agulhas Current, one of the strongest ocean currents on Earth, runs along this coast, and when it collides with opposing weather systems, it can generate waves exceeding 20 meters. These are not ordinary swells. They are walls of water that rise without warning, steep enough to bury a ship's bow and powerful enough to roll a vessel completely over. Ships far larger and more modern than the Waratah have been damaged or sunk in these waters. If the Waratah, already compromised by her questionable stability, was struck broadside by a rogue wave, she may have rolled and never come back up. A capsize in deep water would explain the total absence of debris. If she went down fast enough, there would have been no time to launch lifeboats, no time for a distress signal, and no wreckage field on the surface. Some have proposed an alternative. The Waratah may have suffered a catastrophic boiler explosion, breaking apart so quickly that she sank in pieces. Others have speculated about structural failure, a crack in the hull plating that allowed rapid flooding. A few fringe theories have even invoked fire, collision with an uncharted reef, or piracy, though none of these hold up under serious scrutiny. One tantalizing clue surfaced years after the disappearance. Several witnesses along the South African coast reported seeing smoke and distress flares on the night the Waratah would have been passing. A vessel called the Clan McIntyre, sailing in the same waters that night, reported encountering a severe gale with enormous seas. Her crew observed the lights of another steamer in the distance, and then those lights vanished. The captain of the Clan McIntyre did not investigate, assuming the other vessel had simply passed out of view. Was that the Waratah in her final moments? We will likely never know. If this story has you gripped, take a moment to subscribe and drop a like on this video. Stories like this one deserve to be told and heard, and your support directly helps make that happen. Now, back to the mystery, because there is one more chapter that keeps the Waratah in the headlines even today. The search for the wreck has never truly stopped. In the 1980s and 90s, a South African researcher named Emlyn Brown dedicated over 2 decades to finding the Waratah. Using sonar, magnetometers, and remotely operated vehicles, Brown scoured the seabed off the wild coast. He identified multiple anomalies, underwater signatures that could have been a large wreck. But each time he investigated, the target turned out to be a geological formation or a different vessel. The Waratah remained hidden. In 2004, the National Geographic Society funded an expedition using advanced side-scan sonar. They too found nothing. The ocean floor in the search area is rugged and deep, with canyons and ridges that can easily mask a wreck signature. Some sections plunge to depths exceeding 1,000 meters. If the Waratah broke apart during her sinking, the debris may have scattered across a wide area, making detection nearly impossible with current technology. The ship may be resting in a deep canyon, buried under decades of sediment, invisible to anything short of a direct visual survey. What makes this absence so haunting is the sheer completeness of it. Maritime disasters almost always leave something behind. Bodies wash ashore, life rings are found floating weeks later, oil slicks mark the grave. The Waratah left nothing. It is as if the ship sailed through a door in the ocean and the door closed behind her. 211 people were on that ship, passengers, crew, families. Among them were children. Among them were people traveling home. Among them were immigrants who had just begun new lives in Australia and were returning to visit the ones they left behind in England. There were newlyweds. There were elderly couples who had saved for years to make the journey. Every single one of them vanished without explanation, without farewell, and without a grave anyone can visit. The Waratah stands as one of the great unsolved maritime mysteries, a reminder that even in the age of steel and steam, the sea was still capable of absolute erasure. No black box, no final transmission, no floating wreckage to study, just a ship that left port on a calm winter afternoon and was never heard from again. The Blue Anchor Line never recovered from the scandal. The company folded within 2 years, its reputation destroyed by the loss it could not explain. And somewhere off the coast of South Africa, in waters that have kept their secret for over 100 years, the Waratah is still down there, waiting to be found.